Kids, welcome back to the Far Out Podcast. It has been a time and a half since we last got together, and surely nothing of grave importance has taken place, right? Well, that's not true, because there's never a slow news day, whether it's real and important stuff like politics or, entertainment stuff or sports stuff. There is always plenty to talk about, and there is plenty that I want to talk about, so I'm just going to dive right in. And for my international listeners, I quasi apologize because I'm going to start off with a pretty meaty topic here. I am going to talk about politics, more specifically just how my American government works and stuff like that. And I'm putting kind of some preamble in front of all this because if you did not know, kids, there are some international listeners of the Far Out Podcast. You would be surprised, kids, to know that this internet that we all use is quite literally the World Wide Web. And so for all my international listeners out there who listen to the Far Out Podcast, thank you. But just letting you know right now, I am going to start off with some talk about the U.S. more specifically. Because, in the world of politics and in the world of my government, there was another assassination attempt on my president, the current sitting president of the U.S., Donald Trump. Mark it on the tally sheet here, kids. That now brings up the total to 3. I believe there have been 3 attempts on the president's life thus far. The first one is the most notable one, that one on the campaign trail in Pennsylvania, I believe, where the president was, Trump was, legitimately shot in the ear. He did suffer a flesh wound, and unfortunately, I do believe, a bystander, a civilian, sadly died during that altercation, which is very, very, sad. And then the second attempt, I believe, was technically thwarted before it could really get off the ground. If I remember correctly, Trump was at a golf course, and the Secret Service and other members of that security detail found someone who was not part of the security, and he was set up on the outskirts of the golf course with a long gun of some sort. Excuse me. Again, excuse me if I misremember some of the details. It's been a minute since I've frankly done my research on this, especially the 2 previous attempts, because the most recent one, the third one, is what's kind of dominating the cycle right now in terms of news. But it's crazy to think that we can now live in a world where this seems so frequent and so scary. But I don't really want to get so much into the actual politics of the actual event itself, because there was an attempt on the president and other cabinet members during the White House Correspondents' dinner recently in April. And while I don't want to so much get into the actual politics of it, what I want to talk about, the reason why I want to talk about this very topic at all, is because the response to all this has been quite interesting. And I'm not talking about like how our pundits are digesting this, how other people are handling it, how journalists are talking about it. No, I'm talking about the actual literal people who were in that room when that stuff went down, because the footage is nuts. Because, of course, everyone in there has a cell phone. They all have, a recording device for audio and video, and there is some crazy stuff that you can see there. So when the incident, begins and people realize that there's something going on, that there is, an active shooter moving throughout the building, they begin to duck and cover, and they get underneath tables, and they duck down and all that stuff. But some people, there's footage of some people who continue to eat during the altercation. So like while Secret Service and our military personnel are moving through the building, doing a room check, there's people still swiping bits of food with their fork and whatnot, going after their deviled eggs and their pudding and whatever else they had, during the meal. And there's footage of people grabbing champagne bottles out of those ice buckets and whatnot, because it's like, hey, if we gotta duck and cover, why am I gonna be thirsty while I'm waiting, and all that stuff. And then of course there's all this great footage of the literal response team, the security personnel moving throughout the building. There are some really impressive shots of them just all kitted up with their rifles and their pistols and whatnot. And there's one picture in particular of some chap in a nice dapper suit with a backpack on, who apparently during the moment of this stuff going down, just like out of a freaking Call of Duty video game, he apparently took off his backpack, pulled out this MP7, this submachine gun, put the backpack back on, and was ready to just rock and roll. Kitted out just like freaking John Wick would be. And I don't mean to make light of all this stuff, because it was a legitimate issue. It was a legitimate threat to the lives of many people, not just the president. I do believe there was someone injured during the exchange of gunfire. I believe a Secret Service member was wounded. I don't think that there was anyone actually physically killed throughout this event, which thank goodness. But it's nuts how we can capture literally everything from multiple angles, and getting to see people respond in real time is really, really interesting. There are people like the security personnel and the Secret Service who respond, with professionalism, and they're moving throughout the room with precision, and they're, taking care of business. And then there's people like the guests, governors and senators and representatives and all that, who some of them are more prioritized with food, and some of them are, taking pictures, trying to just gloat and whatnot. And like, there's this picture here of this woman who apparently snapped a selfie, because that's what you do when there is an active hostile situation, apparently. So, God bless us all for everyone, all the top brass who are, working at the White House Correspondents' dinner. But again, I don't mean to make light of this stuff. Again, it was a serious issue, and I'm happy that it was handled with almost no incident. However, it's just wild. There's stuff that happens throughout our news cycle that you think belongs in a movie or in a cartoon, and then to see the response to it kind of reinforces those things. And so, yeah, look, the pictures and the footage that are coming out of it, beyond the takedown of the assailant, and stuff like that. The footage that's circulating over all our news outlets of, the grainy black and white footage of the guy running through the checkpoint past the, guards and the metal detectors and all that. You're going to see that, dozens of times over the coverage of this. But if you actually, go into people's, personal, social media accounts like Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, you're going to see a whole bunch of different perspectives of this, issue taking place. And it's some remarkable footage. It really is. So yeah, look, in a perfect world, this would not have happened, and I hope that in future, events that the president has with, his various members of the cabinet and whatnot, that there will be no more incidents like this, that, security will be even tighter, and that, none of this can possibly happen, that there are no more threats to the lives of those around the president, But I also hope that, in the future, if God forbid something like this does happen yet again, that the response to it is not quick, let me get a picture or a champagne bottle. It's more so, let me look to my fellow man or woman and think, how can I best help them? How can I best ensure their safety as well as my own safety? So, yeah, look, a shocking shocker that shocks people in government, those that work to make this country operate. They're not always the brightest bulbs in the pack, so to speak. And look, again, I've never been in a situation like this, and I pray to God I never am. But I like to think I would not prioritize the hundreds of dollars worth of champagne. I would like to think I'd prioritize, again, the safety of myself and those around me. So yeah, just real interesting stuff coming out of the White House Correspondents' dinner, crime that went down essentially. But yeah, lots of crazy footage. But yeah, again, just never a slow news day. Where were you when this happened and whatnot? As for myself, where was I when this broke? I honestly can't remember, and that's kind of sad because of how recent this was. But that's just the way the world and the U.S. move. It's already kind of quote old news. But yeah, that happened. So yeah, it's just crazy to think about. But yeah, if you want to go find some of these photos and stuff I'm talking about. Of course, you can watch the video I'm posting to YouTube for this free episode, and you can, see the photos that I have found that I think are, cool enough to share and whatnot. But of course, there's many other accounts of this event that you can go find yourself. And yeah, the photos and videos are interesting, to say the least. All right, kids, moving on. I don't know about you, but I could use a palate cleanser after that kind of thing. And what better way to talk about or to move on from real world violence to talk about fictional violence? So yeah, seamless segue. But yeah, kids, if you don't know, there was a movie that came out recently that I have talked about a little bit on the podcast previously. This movie is called Normal. That's it. Just Normal. And it stars Bob Odenkirk, who also made a movie called Nobody. So, he's really kind of getting into a lane here of one-word action titles that, again, start with the letter N. So, go crazy. But he is, of course, known for being, Saul Goodman, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, stuff like that. But he's also kind of become this aging action hero, again, in movies such as Nobody. The first one, I think, is really, really good, kind of, John Wick-esque in nature. Second one I thought was a stinker, just saying my opinion on that. This new movie, though, called Normal, is kind of more in that vein-ish of, Bob Odenkirk playing an aging action hero and, serving out justice, one bullet at a time type stuff. But what's interesting for me specifically about this movie, Normal, is that it takes place in the fictional town of Normal, Minnesota. And so, yeah, kids, the Midwest made it to the big leagues. We're back in Hollywood. So, hoorah to all of us. And yeah, as an actual movie, I found this one to be entertaining. Is it Shakespeare? No. Is it the next John Wick? Also no. But it's good. I think it's slightly better than, say, a B action movie. I think it's like a B plus, kind of a floating A minus. Like, I'll say this. The aesthetic that they go for to capture Minnesota, I don't know if they really got it. Like, there wasn't much of the Midwest accent. There were a few, opes and all stuff like that. I could have used more of the actual lingo and the accent and whatnot. But really more so the movie said, oh, you're going to put this in Minnesota, just have a small town with faded colors and a lot of snow. And that's about it. Look, does it snow in Minnesota? Absolutely. It snows all the freaking time. It might snow today for all I know, but, who knows? And I'm recording this on May 4th. May the 4th be with you, mind you. It is Star Wars Day, so happy Star Wars Day to all who celebrate. So, yeah, look, in Minnesota, it could snow in May. It could snow in July. It could snow in October. We always have snow on the ground. But that's not all Minnesota is, yet this movie seemingly thinks that's all Minnesota is the occasional ope with snow on the ground, and that's how you do Minnesota. That being said, though, I do like that it is Minnesota-based, even if I feel it is kind of somewhat loose, but, I digress. In terms of the actual story, pretty basic. Again, Bob Odenkirk is this guy who, wants kind of a smaller-ish job in a nice quiet town, and it turns out to be anything but that. So a little, kind of paint by numbers there too. I will say though, the action in this movie, quite good. There's some good pyrotechnics and some good explosions and some good, shrapnel and, lots of good debris shots. You see lots of destruction in this movie. Real good stuff as well. A lot more bloody than I thought it would be. There are a lot of very up-close, gory kills that, like John Wick. There's a lot of headshots in John Wick, and stuff like that. John Wick isn't very gory, I would say. You get the occasional, knife kill. You get the occasional stab wound every now and then. But when I think of John Wick, I think of more or less kind of clean action. Again, with, there's some extremeness to it in John Wick. In Normal, though, people are getting stabbed left and right, lots of head injury, stuff like that. People are getting, lit on fire, all that stuff. So, again, it's John Wick in nature because John Wick reinvented the action franchise and it wants to be that. But, in my opinion, I think it went a little more towards the bloody, effect of it all. Some of it to good effect, some of it kind of over the top, in my opinion. I will say this though as well. For all the action movies that I've seen, over the course of the decades of '80s and '90s, 2000s, now the 2010s and 2020s and whatnot, there's still some action that I haven't seen been done yet. And normal, there were a few moves and a few cool moves done with using one's environment and using certain objects where I was like, I've never seen that before, so that was pretty cool. So yeah, normal with Bob Odenkirk, a good movie. Not I don't think it'll be in my top 10, but it's good. I do recommend it. It's not the greatest thing I'll probably end up seeing this year, nor is it going to be the worst either. So it's kind of like on the upper edge of like middle of the pack, I'd say. So yeah, Normal with Bob Odenkirk is a pretty good movie, and I do recommend it if you are a action fan. Okay, kids. Speaking of movies and speaking of action movies, kids, there is a movie about Call of Duty being made, and I cannot wait for that because I do love Call of Duty. But also, there's another video game action franchise that I really do love that is also now getting a movie treatment of its own, and that is Battlefield. And if you've listened to the podcast over the course of its lifetime, you will know that I do really enjoy me some Battlefield. And the latest game in the series, Battlefield 6, is quite good, in my opinion. I really, really enjoyed this game. And now, hot off the heels of the release of Battlefield 6 and the warm reception it's received both critically and with audiences, there is a feature film adaptation of Battlefield officially in the works with the director of the last couple of Mission Impossible movies. His name is Christopher McQuarrie, so he's a big collaborator with Tom Cruise, so he knows how to do action. And then there is also the star being Michael B. Jordan, who I believe is attached to at least produce, but I think he'll also star as well. And he, of course, was in Black Panther and in Sinners, and so his stardom is only rising now, and now he's attached himself to this big bombastic action franchise. And if you know anything about Battlefield, you know that it is a big bombastic action franchise. The thing about Call of Duty and Battlefield is that they're big, military shooters and whatnot. They're very action, forward, which is what makes them so gosh darn entertaining. But the thing about Battlefield that separates it from, say, Call of Duty is that, like in Call of Duty, if you throw a frag grenade or if you shoot a rocket launcher at a building in the game, for example, that building is going to remain standing. It's like, the explosions don't do anything to the environment. They're just meant to, kill people, kill other players throughout the game and whatnot. But in Battlefield, if you throw a grenade or shoot a rocket launcher or whatnot, you will destroy the environment around you. Okay, so if you park a grenade in a corner of a room, boom, that corner's gone. If you decide to drive a tank, up close to a building, you could drive that tank straight through the building, stuff like that. There are, of course, limits to it. It's not like you can destroy absolutely everything, but the Battlefield franchise is known for its large-scale, multiple environments, multiple buildings, multiple engagement types, vehicle, infantry, what have you, all inside of one game. And so, like, you can play literally one round of Battlefield. You can be in a tank, be in a jet, be in a helicopter, do close quarters combat. You can be a sniper. You can do all this stuff. You can experience the fullness of combat roles in one game of Battlefield, and then you can do it over and over and over again. And that's what makes the game so much fun, is that you can just get these hits of this stuff over and over again. It's like going to a buffet, and it's always serving the best food that you want. And so yeah. Now there's going to be a feature film adaptation, which I'm very thankful of, and I think that this is in direct response to the announced Call of Duty movie, which I believe is scheduled for 2028, maybe 2029. I think that's when that Call of Duty movie is supposed to come out. Let me do an on-air, mid-recording production meeting here. Call of Duty movie release date. Let's see here. Call of Duty, yada yada yada. Kids, please talk amongst yourself while I try to figure this out here, because I do believe that the Battlefield movie is going to be somewhat fast tracked in response to Call of Duty, and so it wouldn't surprise me if Battlefield came out first. Okay, so per the Google, so take this with a grain of salt, kids. The Call of Duty movie is set for release June 30th, 2028. So yeah, 2 years plus some change away. Not a long turnaround for that movie. And so if Battlefield is going to want to get in front of Call of Duty, they have to do an even quicker turnaround. And they already have a director, and they already are supposed to have a star, whereas the Call of Duty movie does not have a star yet. That movie is going to be directed by the director of Lone Survivor, the director of Patriots Day, the director of Deepwater Horizon. What's his name? Peter Berg, I think is his name. He made all those movies. That's the guy that's going to be directing the Call of Duty movie. Well, they don't have any cast members for the Call of Duty movie, but the Battlefield movie at least has one per reports, and it's a big star. So if people are going to surround, Michael B. Jordan, then that's fantastic. So yeah, both these movies are coming, but in terms of the Battlefield movie, I do think that this is a top priority. I think that this is a hot ticket item, and I bet that the suits that are in charge of this decision-making process, I bet they want this to get out in front of the Call of Duty movie. Again, that's based on nothing. I have no idea if that's going to be true or not. For all I know, Battlefield the movie might not come out till 2030. But if I was a betting man, I would bet that this movie wants to get out first, even if it's like a month before Call of Duty. So yeah, kids, if I were a betting man, and on occasion I do like to place a wager every now and then, if I were a betting man, I would put my chips that Battlefield releases before Call of Duty. So I think we will get the Battlefield movie before June 30th, 2028. You heard it here first on the Far Out podcast, and if that comes to pass, and if I was correct on that, please return to this podcast episode and drop a comment and simply say thank you. Alrighty, kids, moving on now from the world of movies, entering the world of television, as I have been watching some pretty cool stuff. And most recently, I've been consuming a lot of animation. Of course, I've talked about BoJack Horseman and how I think that's incredible. But recently, I restarted and have been consuming at a very steady pace the animated superhero series known as Invincible. And, I was there when Invincible was announced. I was there when it came out. I literally watched it week to week. I stuck with it, from season 1 to season 2, and then I fell off it. I did. And, the show continued despite me not continuing with it. And now there's seasons 3, 4, and season 5 is on the way. And I decided to go back and start the whole thing over again. So I'm working through all of them in chronological order. I'm going through season 1, season 2, 3, 4, and so on. And eventually I'll get caught up because they're not very long seasons. I believe that they are 8-episode seasons and whatnot. But for the production quality of the animation, for the story that they're telling, it's a very good containment system for this. And here's the thing too, is that this is an animated series, and so I know for some people that is kind of a high bar for entry. People don't like to always watch animation. They prefer, quote unquote, real television, real movies, told in live action and whatnot. And yeah, there are some things that lend themselves to a live action medium, and then there are things that lend themselves to an animated medium, and then there are things that can, cross between those mediums, for example, like Star Wars, which has, movies and television series, both in live action and in animation. But Invincible, really the elevator pitch of Invincible is, what if Superman essentially had consequences? What if having a Superman, actually had consequences in the real world? And that's not like, oh no, Superman's too busy being a hero. He can't have a relationship. He can't have a job. No. The pitch of Invincible is that, like, imagine that there were people as powerful as Superman, but like when they have a fight, it destroys buildings. And when they have a fight, if there isn't someone as strong as Superman, like one punch is literally going to explode their body. It's going to kill the individual, dozens of people, hundreds of people, you name it. And even if there is someone as strong as, say, the Superman, if these two adversaries can go toe to toe with each other, it's still going to be a very bloody affair. And so, Invincible is a very bloody and adult in nature comic book show. You know, when you watch it, you think it presents itself as like something more akin to Spider-Man. You know, certainly when you watch the first episode, it's kind of this good golly gee whiz, you know, I can't wait to be a superhero, you know, yada yada. But then, spoiler, at the very end of episode 1 of season 1, you get into the whole bloody affair, and I mean that literally, because there is a lot of gore and just blood splattering and people being ripped in half and whatnot. And if you are someone who can digest that kind of material, and take it with a stomach of steel, so to speak, it's quite good because it presents the world of being a superhero in a world that, again, is filled with consequences. How you have to literally watch your punches, how you have to watch where you throw things and whatnot. And in season 1 of Invincible, there's the Superman-esque character known as Omni-Man, and he has a son, teenage son, and his character's name is Invincible, hence the title of the show. That's who we're following. We're following essentially Superman's son throughout the first season, and as Superman, Omni-Man, and Invincible are growing as father and son, and as Omni-Man is training his son Invincible in the ways of being a superhero, learning how to fly, how to throw a punch, how to course correct in flight, so on and so forth. Eventually, Omni-Man, again, spoilers for Invincible, eventually Omni-Man reveals to his son Invincible that he is here to conquer Earth. He's here to essentially weaken it for a space-faring empire to come to Earth and take it over. And Invincible, having been raised on Earth by his superpowered father and also his human mother, he cares for Earth. He is half human, and so he doesn't go along with his father's intentions. He actually stands in the way of his father. He opposes him, saying, "No, this is my planet. I'm not going to serve this empire that you belong to, one that I've never met. I'm going to stand with Earth." Stand for Earth, defend Earth. And it literally becomes a story of a father and a son fighting each other. And so imagine, for example, if there was a Superman had a son, and they were completely ideologically opposed from one another, and how that plays out. That's the second season. Then in season 2, it deals with the aftermath of that. What happens to Omni-Man? What happens to Invincible? What happens to, say, Invincible's mother, who has to deal with this revelation that the man that she married, him being, of course, an alien, wasn't here so much to protect the Earth, but rather was here to eventually enslave the Earth. How does Invincible respond to this? How do all the other characters deal with this? What becomes of the Earth now, knowing that their once great protector is now a threat? And how does Invincible, the son, step up to this? Freaking bananas. It's really cool storytelling. Again, told throughout a whole bloody affair, because the whole time these two people are throwing punches at each other, bones are breaking, blood's flying, their faces are getting bruised and all that. It's nuts. It's nuts, but it's told in a really cool way. And Invincible is based on a comic book series of the same name, created by Robert Kirkman as well as others. And if you know the name Robert Kirkman, if you don't know that name, you know of his works as well, because that is the creator of The Walking Dead. And so Robert Kirkman created 2 great comic book series, both of which became really great TV series, in my opinion. And so Invincible is really great. And again, Invincible season 1 I think is tremendous. If season 1 is like a 9, I would give season 2 like an 8.5. And now I'm working through season 3, and I really enjoy season 3. And they just finished up their 4th season as well. And but season 5 is coming; it is confirmed, and I believe that is set to be released in 2027. But again, Invincible as a comic book series is very bloody and mature and adult in nature, and the adaptation, the animated series, is no exception to that as well. Yes, it is animated. Yes, it is superheroes. it's superhero in nature, but it is also very adult. It deals with a lot of blood, violence, and mature themes. So just if you are curious about checking this out, do it again with a sense of caution because boy, does that stuff get you by surprise sometimes. So, yeah, but no, Invincible has been a really fun thing to just partake in terms of my entertainment. And yeah, I think that it is worth checking out. And yeah, it's on Amazon Prime if you are so curious as to where you should watch Invincible. All right, kids. Now moving on, getting out of the world of politics, getting out of the world of movies, getting out of the world of TV and video games and stuff like that, but still sticking in the world of entertainment, kind of sort of speaking. I have consumed a lot of sports recently, a lot of sports. And I want to start here. I want to start with the Minnesota Wild, my hockey team, my favorite hockey team. They are now in the playoffs. Playoff hockey is happening at the time of this recording. Again, happy Star Wars Day to all who celebrate. And yeah, the Minnesota Wild, uh, you know, I'm a new fan to hockey. I'm a new fan to the Wild. I think I've been a fan of the sport and of the team for maybe a year, going on 2 years now. I think this is my second year, maybe going on to my third year, something like that. So, I'm still learning the rules, still learning player names, all that good jazz. But there's also something else I learned about my team, more specifically, the Minnesota Wild. We've gone to the playoffs before, and we've gone into round one and whatnot, but it has been 11 years since the Minnesota Wild advanced into round two of the playoffs. 11 years. So, again, we've gone to the playoffs multiple times in the team's history, but we have not gone beyond round two, or beyond round one, excuse me, and into round two in 11 years. Until this year, kids, until 2026, because I got to see, I believe it was game 6 of the round one series against the Minnesota Wild and the Dallas Stars, and that was a very electric game as well. Very happy to have caught that one. That was a lot of fun, a lot of great action. Because again, it's the playoffs; it's a whole different ball game, But now we're going into round two, which again is very meaningful for the respective franchise of the Wild. So good for the team, good for the state, and the whole deal. And now we're taking on the Colorado Avalanche. And they are a force to be reckoned with because I caught game one of the round two playoff series. And holy cannoli, this thing had everything you could want in a hockey game. It had lots of great checks, fight. There were literal headshots and stuff like that of like the puck. Like at one point early on in the game, an Avalanche player shot the puck at our goalie, at the Wild's goalie. Boom, hit him right in the helmet. And whatnot, and they had to, take a minute for him to get his bearings and stuff. I mean, it was wild. The Avalanche, boy, those guys can skate, and their puck discipline is just phenomenal. The way that they're able to pass and just flow between player after player and shot after shot, it was electric. And at one point, my Wild were down 3-0 in the first period, and they managed to battle back, and they tied it up, and there were all these power plays and all these weird goals, lots of ricochets, lots of near misses too, lots of post shots, stuff that should have gone in, did not, And then the Wild, though, did end up losing 9-6, if you could believe it or not. So it was a very, very high scoring game for the world of hockey. But yeah, the world of hockey playoffs is here. It's happening right now as we're speaking, or as I'm speaking, and as you're listening, excuse me. And the Wild are in it, and they're in round two. And I'm thankful to be able to catch these games and to be a part of the action and to soak up all the energy, because there is a lot of energy to hockey. And as I've talked about before on the podcast, I've been to hockey games live. I've been to 2 Wild games, and the energy when you're in that room, when you're in those arenas, it is different from what you see on the TV. And I think it's a really, really cool sport. Lots of great action. It's very fast paced, and again, the playoffs are no exception as well. And yeah, it's been very, very entertaining. I don't know what the future holds for my Wild going forward. I want to say that, of course, we'll win the whole thing. We'll go on and win a Stanley Cup. But again, I'm just thankful that we have made it out of round one, and now we've progressed into round two. And as for how we'll be able to, go up against our opponent, the Avalanche, I don't know. Hey, they are tough, and they know how to play the hockey. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, the playoffs are here. Hockey's a lot of fun, and go wild. All right, kids. The second round of sports that I want to talk about is shifting gears into a completely different sport itself. We're leaving the ice and entering more so into grass, and we're dropping sticks and picking up bats. And instead of a puck, we're picking up balls as well because I'm now talking about baseball, my favorite sport. And yeah, I had a double dose of baseball over the weekend. My mother, shout out to my mom. Thank you, mom. Love you, mom. She took me to a Twins game for my birthday, and that was a lot of fun. We got to see the Toronto Blue Jays put a wallop on my Twins because they lost in spectacular fashion. But Toronto's a really good team. They were in the World Series against the Doyers for their last go around and whatnot, and they should have won that game because at one point they had the bases loaded in Game 7 of the World Series, and yet they couldn't seal the deal. So go crazy. But yeah, Toronto is a good team and whatnot, and it was fun to see a Twins game live. Again, I love being at Target Field. I love that atmosphere. And even though my Twins did lose, again, I love being there, seeing the game live, absorbing all that energy, seeing everyone in similar-ish garbs of jerseys, hats, scarves, you name it. I love baseball. I love the Twins gear. I think we've got a real cool color scheme, a real cool set of logos, and I'm all in. And my mom is too. She had her own gear on as well. And we really enjoyed just being at that ballpark. And it was a lot of fun just eating hot dogs, drinking beer. Would have been better if the Twins would have won, but beggars can't be choosers. But I'm just happy to get out to ball games at Target Field whenever I can. And I know that the Twins are not the best team in the MLB. We're not even the real best team in our division, to be honest. But it's still a lot of fun to get out there and to support my team. And yeah, if you're a fan of sports, if you like a certain kind of sport, if you like a certain team, I do think at some point you should do yourself a favor and go out and see that sport be played live and see your favorite team be played live, whether they win or lose. I think that you will have a deeper understanding and a deeper appreciation of your fandom if you do that. So yeah, I do recommend that you do that for yourself at some point. And then keeping with baseball still, we saw the Twins play, which is MLB. My mother and I, the following day after the Twins game, we went to a minor league game, a AAA affiliate of the Twins, known as the St. Paul Saints. And essentially, for those who are unfamiliar with how baseball works and stuff like that, AAA is just one step below MLB. It's one step below the majors. And so if a player on the Twins is, say, not performing well, they will get bumped down to AAA. They will get bumped down to the Saints, whereas someone then would get elevated from the Saints from AAA and then enter the major league. And so it was really fun to see them because the Saints, of course, have their own ballpark and they all play really feisty, because they all want that coveted spot of graduating from the minor leagues into the major leagues. And so everyone played hard, played fun. It was a really great game. The Saints won like 16 to like 3, which is freaking bananas. And yeah, I got to see some former Twins play. I got to see hopefully some future Twins play as well. My mother and I, we just had a full weekend of baseball, and it was really a lot of fun getting to see just how the literal different sizes of the ballparks between, again, a major league versus minor league, and getting to see the talent pool and what's working, what's not. It was really, really a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm very thankful to be able to have those experiences because it's one thing to be a fan of baseball, it's another thing to be a fan of minor league baseball. Like here in Fargo, North Dakota, where I'm at, we have the Red Hawks, which is a college level ball club, and that they're a lot of fun too. Again, they play very hard as well because they also want to go pro at some point. But for these guys, the St. Paul Saints, they're just right on the edge of being in the MLB, and so they're going to play incredibly hard. And yeah, there were lots of great plays, lots of home runs. There were at least 5 home runs in that game alone, which is just freaking nuts. And yeah, the Saints absolutely walloped their opponent, which I believe are the Iowa Cubs. I think that's who they played, and they won like 16-3 or 16-4 or something. So yeah, it was pretty cool, and yeah, just I love baseball. I really, really enjoy baseball. It's my favorite sport, And if you also like baseball, then I hope you can get out to watch your favorite team play live at some point. But then even if you can't get to the majors, check out a minor league game. There's a lot of cool energy there, and yeah, it was a really fun experience. And then also keeping with sports and keeping with this trip that my mother and I went on, because we went to Minneapolis to see the Twins and the Saints play respectively. After all the baseball was done, we found a bar and we decided to saddle up, and pun intended, to watch the Kentucky Derby. And yeah, the Kentucky Derby is fun. I know people who get really into racing, whether it's Formula One, horse racing, dog racing, stuff like that. And to be honest, I like the Kentucky Derby, but it's not something I really look forward to. It's kind of like the Olympics where it's like, oh yeah, that's coming. When I heard about the Kentucky Derby, I was like, oh yeah, like now that I know it's here and it's like on the way, it's days away. Like let's get in it, and all that. And so my mom and I we went to a bar in Minneapolis and we got to watch the Derby. And it's nuts because there's all this fanfare and there's all this anticipation for the event, but the actual race itself, the literal Kentucky Derby race, is like 2 minutes long. It's one lap. And so it's like you build up all this anticipation, you do all this stuff, and then it's over in the blink of an eye. Now, of course, there are other races throughout the day. I think the actual Kentucky Derby itself, the actual race was like race 12 of the day, but still, that's the prize event. That's the big one. My mom and I, we did not watch the other race events. We wanted to watch the Kentucky Derby, and we had a good time. We looking at the horses' names and whatnot and placing bets. And yes, my mother and I both did place a wager, as I say on occasion. We like to do that. So it was fun. Our horses did not win. Which is a bummer. Again, we choose via name and color and whatnot. But the actual horse that did win, let me see if I can pull up the horse's name. It had I think it had the word gold in it. Again, I'm doing another on-air, live, mid-recording production meeting here. Hold on just a second. But anyway, as I figure out the name of this horse, the horse itself, the one that actually won, before it had won, it was like in the back of the pack. Like the thing totally overtook all its other competitors, and I didn't see it coming because I was keeping an eye on my horse and my mom's horse, again for our bets because we wanted to win, and our horses, my mother and I's, we were essentially trading spots. We were floating in and out of third, fourth, and fifth, and then this guy just from the back of the pack apparently just wins the whole thing, and he just came out of nowhere, it seemed like. And I'm still scrolling. I'm still looking for the horse name. Oh, I got it here. I found it. The horse's name was Golden Tempo, and he was the winner of the 152nd Kentucky Derby. And yeah, there's some crazy footage of aerial coverage of this horse. Again, being darn near the back of the pack, so like, 17 or 18 out of 18, and he managed just to rocket ahead into first place and to win the gosh darn thing. He takes the outside route, not the inside. He goes outside. He goes wide. Who would have thunk it? But yeah, he had 23-1 odds, and so whoever had wagers on Golden Tempo, go nuts because you just won a lot of money. I didn't, neither did my mom, but like, again, we weren't gonna. Who takes 23-1 guy? My mom and I, we took like 5-1, 8-1. We were in single digits. Freaking Golden Tempo over here, 23-1. Forget about it. So yeah, look, the Kentucky Derby is a lot of fun, and sports in general are a lot of fun. And believe me, I would love to see horse racing live. I think that would be really incredible too. I don't know where I could possibly do that. I think there might be some horse tracks, funny enough, in Minneapolis, but I'll get out to one eventually. But yeah, the Kentucky Derby, cool, fun. Blink and you miss it, unfortunately. But it is a very interesting and different kind of, event when compared to, say, basketball, football, hockey, so on and so forth. So, yeah, congrats to Golden Tempo winning in pretty cool fashion as well. Again, taking the outside route, coming from the back of the pack into the front. So, good for them. And yeah, it's sports are fun. Whoopsie. And yeah, sports are a fun part of life, and they're pretty much year round, because whereas one stops, another one starts, and it won't be long before um, baseball. Won't be long before football is back, and so on and so forth. So yeah, just if your respective team is out there winning, then great. Unless you're the Broncos. Yeah, the teams that I have real animosity towards. Well, the Broncos can't win right now because they're not playing. But yeah, the Las Vegas Golden Knights for hockey, can't stand them. Um, the LA Angels for baseball, can't stand them. The Denver Nuggets for basketball, can't stand them. Though the Timberwolves did eliminate them in the playoffs, so that's good for me as well. Let's see. Again, the Broncos football, they're coming up, and yeah. So unless you're fans of those teams, um, go crazy. I of course kid. I kid. If you are a fan of those teams, hope you have a good time as well in your fandom. But yeah, I cannot pull for them, so to speak. But yeah, that'll do it, kids, for this episode of the Far Out Podcast. A lot to talk about, kind of crammed in a nice to-go box for your listening ears, kids. Take this episode with you. Take it on the road. Take it on your jog. If you're able to, listen to it at work in a respectful manner. But yes, kids, that'll do it. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Please, I have to do this dumb preamble. Don't forget to, or yeah, this dumb closing thing. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. And as all the cool kids say everywhere, far and wide, go sports. All right, bye-bye.